Yo, ready or not, here we are with some more Tom Macdonald. Roll it. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Channel's name is TheThirdErnest. I'm Ernest Ariano III, y'all guys' third family. If you're new here and you're not subscribed and you like what you see at the end of the video, consider clicking the subscribe button bottom right hand corner. Now, if you've been here on this channel, if you've seen other Tom Macdonald reactions of mine before, you know that it's kind of like a very rocky road that I have with Tom. I get what he's trying to do. I get like the controversial nature of his music, but it seems to me like he's touching on controversial issues at a very shallow level just because it's like shock value and gets views, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, you're always gonna have the person that say, oh, well, you like Eminem, that's what he does, and that's what he did with Marshall Mathers LP, and like, it's clearly not the same. If you just listen to if you listen to song by song from Tom and Em, both very controversial rappers at their peak. Tom, I would say, is probably at his peak right now, and Eminem was probably at his first peak in like 02 when he was most controversial, trying to be censored by the United States government, basically by the FCC. It's apples to oranges. Bitch, that phrase don't make no sense. Why can't fruit be compared? It's two different beings. Eminem is like at a much higher level with these controversial stances versus where Tom is kind of just throwing them out there to get to see if they stick on the window, you know? But I will say those are my thoughts, at least so far. You never know if he's gonna be able to like change my mind. I thought I was actually done reacting to Tom, but my boy King Blitz over here, he was like, yo, I forgot what he said. Tom Macdonald reactions have the funniest comment sections. And I was like, I'm about to react to a few of his joints today just to see what the vibe is, just to see what we got. So that's why we're here. As always, I go into it with an open mind. I keep my past reactions in my head and what I've thought about his music in my head, so that way I can kind of keep like a track record of the way I feel about Tom's music. But every song I'm going into it with an open mind, trying to see what it is. And titles like Fake Woke, they're obviously gonna garner some views. But that's really all that I gotta say. Follow your boy on Instagram and on Twitter at TheThirdErnest, just like the channel. The links are down in the description below. And we got Tom Macdonald, Fake Woke. 2 days ago, almost 2 million views. The boy pulls in views, you can't deny that. Let's get it.
I think it's crazy I'm the one who they labeled as controversial, and Cardi B is the role model for 12-year-old girls. There's rappers pushing Xanax at the top of the billboard, but if I mention race in a song, I'm scared I'll get killed for it. It's backwards, it's getting exponentially dumb.
It's always been the case. It's always been the case that rappers that talk about these things, or that Cardi B, who's, you know, very sexually aware of who she is, like, it's always been the case that has always been at the top of the billboard. Nothing is getting exponentially worse. And personally, I don't label Tom as controversial. I think that he says things that are full of controversy in order to spark interest and get views and clicks and things like that. But to me, he's not a controversial rapper, you know?
It's backwards, it's getting exponentially dumb. It's more difficult to get a job than purchase a gun. Eminem used to gay bash and murder his mom, and now he doesn't want fans if they voted for Trump. We're ashamed to be American. You should probably love it because you...
That is an awful line to say, we're ashamed to be American, right after what you just said. Like, when you say we're ashamed to be American, you make it sound like being American means that you have to be homophobic, or you have to be okay with homophobia. Eminem is also not 24 years old anymore. The dude is 50. He's allowed growth. He's allowed to be a pessimist who turned to an optimist in his prime, you know? And again, this is why I say what I say about Tom, like with the shallow point of view that he has for a lot of these things, because he's like skipping rocks on a pond. Like, it's just touching the surface and grazing off, versus like actually going deep into feeling what he's saying. You're obviously gonna spark controversy when you say it's harder to find a job than it is to purchase a gun. They're two completely different topics. They have no relation. And when you say things like that, you're just fueling people who already have a fear against the Second Amendment, or who don't believe in it. It's easy for me to buy a gun. I have no issues with being able to just walk into a store and walk out with a pistol or an AR-15 or something like that. But that's because I have a clean background. That's because I go through an entire FBI federal background check every time I do it. Nobody can buy a gun for me. Like, it's to the point where I just recently bought a pistol that I showed on my Instagram, and I bought it online, but people don't even know what goes into buying guns online. They don't know that you still have to go through a background check. They don't know that the shit just can't be delivered straight to your door. They don't know that you can't misspell anything in your name. You can't have anything that might be even slightly askew, or you're not going to get that pistol. Like, A lot of people just aren't aware of what goes into buying a gun. So of course they're going to say it's easier to buy a gun than it is to get a job, when really getting a job is not really that controversial of a stance anymore either. Maybe like in 08, 09 during the Great Recession. But right now, like for the most part, at least from the last time that I checked, it was probably like a year ago, unemployment was down like significantly. It's bringing two things that are both controversial. People have strong stances about how to get a job. People have strong stances against guns, and you bring those two together, and a lot of people just can't see through the technique. But you're not being honest when you say things like that, in my personal opinion.
We're ashamed to be American. You should probably love it, cause you have the right to hate it and not get stoned to death in public. As children we were taught how to walk and talk, but the system wants adults to sit down and shut up. Cancel culture runs the world now, the planet went crazy. Label everything we say as homophobic or racist. If you're white, then you're privileged, guilty by association. All our childhood heroes got Me Too'd or they're rapists. They never freed the slaves. They realized that
That is something that I will agree with him on. I don't like the very sensitive nature of not even American culture, internet culture specifically. Like everybody is outraged about something. Everybody's outraged and wants to flex their First Amendment right on somebody else who's flexing their First Amendment right. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. And this isn't me like defending people who are intentionally, like they're intentionally trying to hurt others, or they're intentionally saying that people are less than them because of their color or their race or their sexual tendencies or who they love or whatever. Like, obviously I'm not defending that, but I do defend the right for that person to say whatever they want, you know? So I will always agree with Tom whenever he says things like that. But what I won't defend him on is him trying to rhyme walk and talk with sit down and shut up. That's an awful bar. That don't even rhyme. Not even close. Of course you're taught to walk and talk. The fuck? You're gonna teach yourself that anyway. It's instinctual. And you're not saying anything that somebody hasn't said before you. Like that is not a take that is new. People are always gonna be talking about the box-in nature of education. People are always gonna be talking about the box-in nature of corporate America. Like, you're not saying anything that's new. And if anything, at this point, corporate America is like one of the most American things. And here it's like a contradictory stance whenever you're talking about we want to be American, but then you're also taught to sit down and shut up.
Never freed the slaves. They realized that they don't need the chains. They gave us tiny screens. We think we free because we can't see the cage. They knew that race war would be the game they need to play. For people to big teams, they use the media to feed the flame. They so.
That's true. That's true. I'll give him that. I mean, and again, that's not an original stance. Like Kanye said it all the way back to Yeezus when he said, "We the new slaves." It's not original. That's really my only problem with a lot of Tom Macdonald's songs, is that the things that he's saying are not original and they are very pandering. It's to the point where I don't even know if I believe that he believes the things that he says, or is he just saying them because they are going against the grain and it's going to get views and controversial stances and people are going to watch, you know?
They so fake woke. Facts don't care about feelings. They know they won't tell me what to believe in. They so fake woke. Same old safe zones. They so fake woke. Facts don't care about your feelings. I think it's crazy how these people scream.
All right, so one of my biggest criticisms of Tom Macdonald is that his hooks are trash. That was awful. I always go into a Tom Macdonald song just hoping that the hook is decent enough so that way I could change my opinion on his music, because specifically the hooks are fucking... That hook that I just heard, I'm going to put it out on the curb tomorrow so that way it could be picked up by the garbage man, because that was... And if you're a Tom Macdonald fan, you're obviously not going to like this reaction, because I'm ultra critical of Tom Macdonald, because I know that he has talent. I know that he has the ability to rap. Will he ever be my favorite rapper? Is he a rapper's rapper? Is he a hip hop head's rapper? Nah, not even. I can see the pie chart of what his demographic is, and I do not fit even a sliver in there, because this is not my type of rap music. And even though I might agree with some of the things that he's saying, I don't have such a polarizing personality that I have to hang on every Tom Macdonald word, because I can clearly see that he's only saying these things because of the views that they're gonna garner. Like the facade that he puts on in these songs, like I just see right through it. So that's why I think that it's cheesy to me, or it's corny to me, because you know there's nothing of substance there. It seems like there's substance, it seems like it holds weight, but in actuality it really doesn't. Or even if it does, there are rappers that have said these things in better ways and more creative ways and more artistic ways than what he's putting up right here.
care about your feelings. I think it's crazy how these people screaming facts, but they fake woke. Hate their neighbor cause he wears a mask or he stays home. Has a daughter but his favorite artist said he slays hoes. Picks her up from school, music slaps on the way home. Censorship's an issue cause they choose what they erase. There's a difference between...
Again, nothing that hasn't been said before.
Censorship's an issue cause they choose what they erase. There's a difference between hate speech and speech that you hate. I think Black Lives Matter was the stupidest name when the system's screwing everyone exactly the same. I just want to spend Thanksgiving...
Okay. I agree that Black Lives Matter could have probably been marketed in a better way, because then now you have people who are against Black Lives Matter saying all lives matter. Like, what? That's not the point of the Black Lives Matter movement, is to say that only Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter too is really what the point of the movement is, but obviously that's going to polarize people just on the way that the movement was branded, you know? I think censorship should play a part in false information not being spread, but but even then I'm still very wary of saying that, because it's a very slippery slope. Who's to say what is factual and what is not factual whenever you're talking about opinion-based conversations, you know? Opinion-based conversations should not be censored whatsoever. But false information that's being passed as true probably should have a little censorship, but then you go down, but then if you start censoring that, then you start censoring all of like the satire, like The Onion and things like that. So it's a very slippery slope. So I understand why people think that censorship is bad, because I do as well, but I understand people also wanting to mitigate false information being spread. So it's hard to say which side is correct.
When the system's screwing everyone exactly the same, I just want to spend Thanksgiving Day with food and my family, without being accused of celebrating native casualties. We got so divided, it's black and white and political. Republicans are bigots, libtards if you're liberal. There's right.
I do agree with him 100% on that. Like, if you're someone who doesn't want to celebrate Thanksgiving, or you want to celebrate Indigenous Day or whatever the hell you want to celebrate, that's not my business. Do what you want to do. That's your prerogative, you know? I understand that you want to be sensitive toward indigenous people and the way that like the settlers handled their entire life and situation. But that doesn't mean that somebody sitting at a dinner table in 2021 is celebrating the rape and pillage of the Native Americans. It's a symbolic type of thing that's happening on that day. But like I said, if you don't agree with the celebration or want to celebrate on a different day that means something else, by all means, do what you got to do. But don't just automatically group the people that want to spend time with their families on Thanksgiving, because that's what they see it as people who are insensitive to what happened to the Native Americans. Like, it's not a reach, but it is a reach, at least to me. And I also agree that like we shouldn't be so far hyper divided. Like, so far, like everybody on the right is ultra right, and so everybody on the left is ultra left. Like, people aren't normally that far. They're normally not that polarized. Someone who looks at me and sees that I own guns and AR-15s and all that, they're gonna say that I live far on the far right side, but in actuality, I'm probably like right down the middle. I agree with freedom of speech. I agree with the ability to own guns and all that, but I also agree with, you know, love is love, and I agree in LGBTQ like rights and all of that. So it's like, most people are going to be right somewhere in the middle, of not leaning slightly to one direction. I don't agree with everything that the right does, and I don't agree with everything that the left does. That's just the way it is.
Libtards if you're liberal. There's riots in our streets and it's just getting worse. Y'all screaming deep on the police. Y'all are genius for sure. They're underfunded already. They're way too busy to work. Order food and call the cops. See what reaches you first. Segregation ended. That's a lie.
To be fair, you can pay extra on Uber Eats to get your food delivered first. Just saying. And the whole defunding the police, obviously that's kind of like it's a very ultra stance in one direction. I think that they need to take the funding that they have. They need to take the funding that they have and redistribute the funding to put it more toward training and more toward how to use non-lethal forms of force. But again, I feel like most people are down the middle. Most people that hear defund the police are not going to be like, yeah, take all the police's money away. Let's get rid of police altogether. Like, most people are not going to be on that side. Most people are going to be like, I see what you're saying. I agree that the police need to have like tighter reins on them, or maybe taught different psychological things, or maybe go through more extensive training than they normally do. But obviously, most people are not going to be like completely get rid of police officers, you know?
Order food and call the cops. See what reaches you first. Segregation ended, that's a lie in itself. That was a strategy to make us think they were trying to help. They knew that racism was hot if they designed it to sell. We buy up every single box and divide us ourselves. They so fake woke. Facts don't care about your feelings. We use violence to get peace and wonder.
Hook is trash.
We use violence to get peace and wonder why it isn't working. That's like sleeping with a football team to try and be a virgin. Politicians are for sale and someone...
Yo, Oh shit, that analogy.
We use violence to get peace and wonder why it isn't working. That's like sleeping with a football team to try and be a virgin. Politicians are for sale and someone always makes the purchase, but you and I cannot afford it. Our democracy is worthless. If a man has mental illness,
I do kind of agree with him on that part, at least. Like democracy, like especially when it comes to that high up, like presidential level. I get your strong feeling toward one political party, but like at the end of the day, the president is not going to affect your daily life in any way that you think it's going to happen. Even if the president has radical ideas, they still don't have full power to just like go and use presidential authority over everything. Like the president can't even go to war if he wants to. It's got to be voted on. Like the House and the Senate, like they have more power than the actual president does in the grand scheme of things in terms of affecting your everyday life. But I get what he's saying. And that's why he's saying like politicians can be bought and like we have no say so over it because we're like a school of fish. All we are is a social security number to these people, you know? Again, so like I agree with some of the sentiments that he says. It's just the way that he says it in this, like, I don't know. It's just, I can see right through it. I can see right through what he's trying to get across.
Afforded. Our democracy is worthless. If a man has mental illness, call him crazy, say it silently. When country's going crazy, we accept it as society. Get sick and take a pill. When the side effects get you high, you get addicted like these rappers dying, fighting with sobriety. Censoring.
I do agree with him on that. I do believe that prescription medication is way too over like used. They see you for a couple of sessions and then they just automatically prescribe Percocet or Xanax or whatever. These drugs are so addictive and they're so powerful. I do agree that they should be very last step options. And some people actually do need them. So the meds, they do have legitimate uses. It's just too easy to abuse them. And I also agree with what he's saying about like men with mental illness and how men having mental issues and anxiety and depression, like it is pushed aside. Mental illness already had a negative stigma for so long, but men having to suck it up and be men about it, like that was also a stigma that is kind of starting to slowly die out, thankfully.
Fighting with sobriety, censoring the facts turns our children into idiots. They claim it's for our safety. I'll tell you what it really is. Removing information that empowers all the citizens. The truth doesn't damage points of view that are legitimate. They're trying to change amen to
I get that. Yep. I agree. Again, the truth doesn't damage anything other than like people being able to make their own decisions on what's true and what's not. Again, that's why I said censorship is like a very slippery slope because people could say that things are not true that actually are, or vice versa.
The truth doesn't damage points of view that are legitimate. They're trying to change amen to amen and women. How'd we let them make praying a microaggression?
Are they really trying to change that? Amen and women? Is that what people are trying to say? I didn't even know that. I don't know if that's true or not. If that is true, that's just funny to me. Amen and women. What the fuck?
Change amen to amen and women. How'd we let them make praying a microaggression? Instead of asking God for the strength to keep winning, we cheat to get ahead and then we ask him for forgiveness. Feminism used to be the most righteous of fights, but these days it feels like they secretly hate guys. I don't trust anyone who bleeds for a week and don't die. I'm just kidding, but everything else that I said is right.
Again, who's to say that what you said is right, you know? You can't say that censorship is a shitty thing and then go and say that some of your opinion-based arguments in this song are 100% right and legitimate. Like now you're saying that your opinion is fact, but then you also have a stance against censorship. Like you're kind of try to dance with both the angel and the devil on the shoulder at the same time. And again, this is why I say like he's a watered down version of like controversial Eminem back in the day, because that is literally the way that he just said, I don't trust anything that bleeds for 5 days or whatever and doesn't die, and he says I'm just kidding. Like that is something that Eminem has done plenty of times over his career. I'm just playing, ladies, you know I love you. I'm just playing, Diddy, you know I love you. I'm just playing, America, you know I love you. So this is not like, none of this is inventive to me. Yo. So, same stance that I've had on every other Tom Macdonald song, and it's because this song sounds exactly like every other Tom Macdonald song. He's literally just taking the same argumentative stance that he always has and trying to like repackage it under a new instrumental, but it's literally the same thing that he said in other songs that are exactly like this. There was one track that he had a couple of months ago that I like reacted to, but I forgot to turn the camera on, so I didn't actually get like the I didn't get the reaction, and I never uploaded it because I didn't want to pretend like I was reacting. But which one was it? It was People So Stupid. Like that is the same exact fucking song as this one is. And the ironic thing is that like saying somebody is fake woke and then having a song like this song sounds like it's also fake woke. because you're being so shallow about all of these topics. You're touching on a topic and making it very generic and then moving on to the next because you know people have very strong stances and strong opinions on it, you know? And the reason why I say Tom Macdonald's demographic is not a demographic that actually listens to rap or hip hop, it's because, first off, I feel like his demographic, I'm just gonna say it straightforward, is probably 90%, if not in the 95 percentile, white Americans, white males specifically, between like 25 and like 34. And that demographic probably breaks down into another sub-demographic and is probably leans toward more on the conservative side. So he's like pandering to that demographic because that demographic is gonna hear his music and be like, finally, we have somebody that understands what we're thinking. But really, I don't personally know if Tom believes this thing. I think that he has tapped into a demographic that doesn't have representation in hip hop, in rap, and that demographic eats it up. So now he's like in that lane because it makes him money. And again, every Tom song, I'm not like being critical of him because I'm like not jumping into it with like a negative stance. Like I personally want to like his music, but it's just so pandering and he is not a rap fan's rapper at all. That's really what it comes down to. And that's all I got to say about it. But yo, that brings us to the end of this video, ladies and gentlemen. If you like what you see, please consider liking the video, leaving a comment down below. If you like what you see enough, please consider subscribing. Chances are, if you're a Tom Macdonald fan and you're watching this, I'm probably gonna get a thumbs down from you, but that's fine. If you like the analytical feedback, you know, consider subscribing because that's how we get down around here. Follow your boy on Instagram, Twitter, and Discord, all linked in the description below. Hit up the Patreon if you're someone who wants to support the channel monetarily and you're in that capable position because you get enough entertainment and value out of the channel and you want to throw a couple dollars my way. I do this full-time on YouTube because of Patreon. So if that's your vibe, consider clicking the first link in the description. But that's really all that I got for you today, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate everybody's time. And like I always say at the end of all of my videos, go out there in the world, love and care for one another, love and care for each other. And I'll catch everybody in the next video. Peace.